Welcome to week number 6 of your class, on our class in organizational behavior. Last week there was no class, at least for me, for lecture, because you had your midterm. And now we start the second half of our program. So today we are looking at 3 chapters of your book, chapter 8, chapter 9, and chapter 10. There are 3 interesting chapters. Chapter 8 is about communication. So basically how we communicate in a workplace. Chapter 9 is about groups and teams. We will see the difference between groups and teams. Of course, when you are in an organization, there are a lot of groups and a lot of teams. And so how we can manage both groups and teams. And chapter 10 is about conflict. Of course, in any situation, including the workplace, human beings are always find a way to be in conflict between each other, and how we can negotiate an agreement between people who are in disagreement. So these are the 3 chapters for days. Let's start with chapter number 8. So I was looking at a couple of examples that my notes I put together. So imagine a group. So you are 3 people at work. You come together because you want to solve a specific problem. Well, you come together, you solve the problem, and then you disbanded the group. But a team is something that is framed, has been shaped in order to solve a specific problem in a specific way. And usually the members of a team are not just people that come together because they like each other, but because the organization believes that these people together can actually come with a new idea, come with a solution, or something. So basically, there is a difference between a group and a team. A group is some people coming together eventually to resolve a problem. They disbanded, they come together because they think that together they can have pleasure also to work together. But a team is something that has a specific agenda. This agenda is not necessarily decided by the members of the team, but probably and more frequently is set by somebody else inside the organization that actually established the team in order to reach this goal. So imagine for a second that the idea is we want to enter a new market. Which market? And so in the team, you need to have somebody who's very expert in market or marketing, somebody that is expert in finance, somebody that is expert in production, somebody that is expert in accounting. And each of these individuals brings something to the project because the goal is to understand exactly which market the company needs to address. So you need different competences around. And of course, the point is not that these people necessarily like each other when they are recruited in a team. It's different than in a group. In a team, you are chosen because you can contribute with certain kind of competence. And so you find in the team other people that eventually has been chosen by somebody. So one of the problems of the groups is that who is the leader? And sometimes there is no leader. Sometimes the leader just emerges naturally. But in a team, usually the organization decides who is actually the team leader, the team manager. This team manager receives some kind of power that he or she doesn't share with the other members of the team because it's the power he received from the organization in order to lead the team towards whatever the goal of the team is. There is your book is very good in showing the ambiguity of the team manager because in somehow he received the orders from the organization, but from the other, he needs to have some kind of autonomy that give you the ability to manage the other members of the team. And the same is true between the team manager and the other individual in the team. Because of course, the members of a team are not just soldiers that receive the order from the team manager. They also have to receive some kind of autonomy. And so there is this tension between the order that comes and the autonomy that you have in order to actually obey to the order that you receive. One of the most crucial aspects of a team are the rules. So there are formal rules, informal rules. For example, there are some contracts in the sense that people become members of a team because they are assigned to the team. So they sign a contract. Then there are the norms that regulate the way the people act in the team. One important rule is how to manage the meetings. What are you are supposed to do in the meetings? What are you supposed to do before the meetings? What are you supposed to do after the meeting? How much time you have to be active, if you have to be passive, and so on. So there are different rules that apply to a team. But basically, what I want to say is the team is much more formal than any kind of group you can imagine. That is probably the best way to put it. Chapter 10 is about conflict. And your book says, well, there are not just one way to get pissed off to start the conflict. One conflict is interpersonal conflict, basically conflict among people or between people. That is called intrapersonal. Sorry, it's interpersonal. Interpersonal is between person. But then there is also, and this is very interesting, the intrapersonal conflict. So when you are in conflict with yourself because you have a tension, you don't know exactly what you want to do. Then there is the conflict between groups because one group wants something and another group wants something else. And your book correctly asks, is conflict always bad? And it's not always bad because sometimes conflict can bring a good idea, push the people to the limits, but at the same time, it depends on how violent and destructive is actually the conflict. So we said that there are interpersonal and intrapersonal conflict. And these are two types of conflict, very important. But why, at the end, a conflict emerges in an organization? Well, there are many different reasons, but I tell you just a few. First, you gave me an order to reach one goal, but you didn't give me the resources. So let's say you have to increase the sales of 20%, but with the same people of last year. So my answer is, well, I'm not a magician. How can I reach that goal if I don't increase somehow my resources? Um, um, another another source of conflict is my boss comes to me and says, "Hey, you have to um, spend more time on the field so you understand better what's going on over there, but you have also to spend more time in office because I want you to be close to me because I need you." And so I look at the boss and I say, "I'm sorry, but a day is made of 24 hours, so I can be more in one place and more in the other place at the same time." Another reason of conflict is that we are different. So I take more risk, you are more prudent, and you annoy me. Or I am more courageous, you are more prudent, and you can take me because I create so many problems. Another reason why we have a conflict is that we talk and we don't understand each other. And actually, this is probably the main reason for conflict. So there are really many different reasons why we have conflict. The problem is, what is the solution for this conflict that are endemic, means natural, in an organization? So how we can manage the conflict, how we can um, uh, um, make sure that the conflict is manageable. We can govern somehow the, the conflict. Well, one is change people in different position, change the people in the team if the people in the team are fighting, um, introduce the majority rules. It says basically, okay, we vote and the majority wins. So there are different ways. Another way is accommodation. So you start sitting with the other part and you start talking until you find a solution. You bring a third party inside the conflict, and the third party is negotiating an agreement between the two sides. This is a normal thing because, of course, conflict can be positive or negative, but it cannot be overlasting. So at the end of the day, conflict must start and then finish somehow. So that's why your book moved to the idea of negotiation, because negotiation is important. So usually it's a third party coming and talking with both sides and says, okay, what is the point of compromise that we can find? And then he present to both sides um, what is the potential solution. He makes the further negotiation, and then he find agreement. Of course, it's very important, this point of compromise that is, your book call it the best alternative to a negotiated agreement. So basically say, hey, if you don't negotiate, what is the solution? So, okay, you think we have to do this, he thinks we have to do that. If we don't find a solution, what is the inevitable alternative? And so that is to force the two sides to actually come together and accept a compromise. Of course, there is also the possibility at the end that the compromise is not reached because of many reasons, because I think I'm right and I think he's wrong. He thinks exactly the same thing. Because I have, how can I say, unrealistic expectation. I think that people will come to me and say, you are absolutely right. And maybe the other side has exactly this overwhelming expectation and so on. Or maybe because the mediation brought by the third party is not good enough. So as you notice, all these 3 chapters we discussed about the communication, the conflict, and the management of teams and groups are introduction, because many of the things can be said, but they're a good introduction that allowed you to catch what is important in each of these subjects. The communication is complicated. The teams are informal, more formal, the groups are informal, quite formal. The teams are very formal. And finally, the conflict for many reasons, ego, miscommunication, and so on, and the necessity of a compromise, the necessity of negotiation. Right. Next week we'll address another 3 chapters of your book.